Odessa Development Corporation Board of Directors to order at 3:10. Tim, would you do our invocation today for us, please?
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for another wonderful day, and we thank you for the opportunity to serve our communities and our universities and to provide the monies for projects and stuff that they are doing. We ask that you be with each and every one of us as we make these decisions and make it in the best interest of our community and with your blessing. In your name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Tim. Let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. All stand, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Texas pledge. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. Thank you. Okay, you've got two sets of minutes, the minutes from March 13th and minutes from April 3rd. Are there any corrections? If there are none, I would entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of March 13th and April 3rd as presented. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. All right, any member of the public may address the ODC board regarding any of its agenda items before or during the consideration of the item. Any comments at this time? If not, we'll go to contractors' reports. Now, we just had a lengthy meeting with Tom Mansky last week. I'm pretty sure that probably pretty adequate, brought us up to speed. So, Renee, unless you got something to add.
Other than the fact he's not here today, they had a site selector group in town. So they apologize for not being here, but they're taking care of the exact business you want them to do.
Yep, that's the perfect reason not to be here. All right, and I think we've got Christie's information in the packet.
Yes, she sent me some information, and Ronnie and I met with her prior to the last meeting. And her report, I thought she had sent it to everybody, but she just sent it to Ronnie and I. Okay. And it kind of elaborates, goes along with what it is, and we can forward that to everyone so they'll have it. But okay. I was real impressed with what she's done.
Yeah, it was basically the same thing we had talked about last meeting when I shared about the job she was doing. We thought everybody did get it, but somebody was sorry.
Well, both of you are very complimentary of the work that's being done there, so that's good.
And we actually talked last time, remember, if she even needed to present every time or not.
Yeah, we talked about maybe going to every
quarter. Yeah, I think
I mean, get the information, but she doesn't have to physically.
Well, when I forward this email to you, the rest of the board, you'll find out it goes into detail what she's done, the podcast she did with Tom and all that stuff.
Okay, great. The Black Chamber has a report in the packet. UTPB SBDC has a report in the packet. Motran has a report. Kayla Hardy is going to present. Kaylee's out of pocket, so she's going to present the financials, and I'm assuming everybody received those in a separate email transmittal.
I have extras if anybody needs one. Have them?
I think we all should.
Okay.
We all should have it.
Well, hello. Thank you for letting me come in Kaylee's absence. She's out getting more education and learning more today. So I was going to go over just the balance sheet first. I'll tell you the little bit of things that I noticed that were a little bit different. I've only looked at these a couple of times in the past, so please ask any questions. If I don't have the answer, I will get the answer. The first thing I noticed, and I'm sure you're already aware of this, but on our investments at the very beginning, the local government pools is a little different than the investment report at the back.
Yeah.
And that's because the investment report in the back doesn't reflect the cash that ODC's owes to the city for payments dispersed. So that's the difference there.
Is your microphone on by chance?
Are you saying you can't hear me? That never
I
happens.
can't hear you.
Light should come on.
It was on. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Oh, I
Now
just
I
off
can
to the
hear
side. Sorry about that. Thank you.
So that's why the 76,926 doesn't tie to her
Yes,
schedule?
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
I don't know why they're not synced up, but I know it is a timing issue.
okay.
The next big thing I noticed was on, you'll see the 13 million. This is historically a little bit lower than that. The reason for this is there was $8 million that were agreed upon to move out and to invest. And the very last page shows the investments that were agreed upon. Kaylee said a few of them did change a little bit, but the nature of the investment did not change. It just might be who they were with and exact those things. But so that's why that number's a little bit different this time. Everything else looked pretty self-explanatory to me. If you have any questions on that one, on the assets.
I have a question on the changes in the reserved fund balance.
Okay?
And I think it's just, I don't understand the in and out probably, but on Wackerman Trading, under business incentives, for the short-term commitments, it went to $1,693,000 from $501,377. So I'm thinking that probably got to $1,693. That must be the annual amount maybe to get it to that. But what came out of the long-term commitments were $2,194,600. And so I was having a hard time telling if we paid them something. First, I thought that was just moving from long-term up to short-term, but that's not the whole amount. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. That's a good question, and I'll have to look this more. I remember part of this when I was going through this for the 23 audit we're working on. I pulled some of these.
Okay.
And the ones I pulled are older, so it's not this. But y'all might know better than me, but did Walkman not get their full contract amount? Was it something like that that changed on?
They're still what?
It's still ongoing.
Okay, I couldn't tell, whenever we just increase the current amount and then we decrease the long-term amount by more, did we make a payment to them or?
We did make a payment. There was a payment made to Walkman, and I can get you that exact
That's
dollar
kind of the
amount.
whole thing.
It was a payment was made in, it looks like March.
Yeah, and what I'm hearing Peggy say, you'd think that as the short term is reduced,
As it's increased.
As the long
excuse
term-
me,
yeah.
as it,
As the long term's reduced, you'd think the short term
right,
would be the same amount.
amount,
And there's a
correct.
difference there, and I didn't know if the difference is a payment that was made.
I will verify that. I believe I think it was two-part. There was a payment and then whenever the audit goes through, you determine how much they've accomplished. I think that was a factor too on this one, but I can pull those
So you're
payables
saying
into-
there might be an accrual?
I did have to go back and do a bunch of accruals whenever we were looking at just our books, the city's books for 23. Obviously, we do the ODC as we review it as well, and I found 3 or 4 payables that should have been accrued in 23 and in 24 and paid out in 25. So you're going to see some weird changes there. And that probably has something to do with, I know Walkman was part of that issue. I can get you those exact accruals that spanned across those 3 years. That's kind of what I was mentioning a little bit earlier when I was with the auditors. It was weird. I've never had to do an accrual over 3 years before. That one was new to me, but I have to roll forward. I can show you.
Can you, I guess, follow up with an email to all the board members that says, all right, here's the question that was asked in reference this particular balance sheet, and how you would resolve that that the short term and the long term wouldn't change by the same amount, I guess is what it,
And that
I know
makes sense.
one's a positive, one's a negative, but you'd think that they'd be the same.
$1 million
Except
difference.
an amount, if they paid out something, that could affect
Yeah.
it, so.
$1 million difference.
And the other question that I had was on the liquid funds, this one that has the colored pie chart.
Yes, ma'am.
And it's really more just of an observation, but I spent a little bit of time trying to figure out why it didn't work, and then I just realized it's just a math issue. But if you look at the total money market investment on that, it says 5,219,605, and then it says 13,314 above. Well, obviously 13 million coming down isn't 5 million. I don't know where the 5,219 came from, but the
Which page are you looking at? I'm sorry.
It's the last page.
The last page. Okay, I'm sorry.
That little box in the upper right-hand corner, in the middle of the page, where it's talking about the money market.
Okay. I will find that out.
Frost money market account, and then the total money market investment.
And the problem is that
Oh.
it needs to be,
I know, I didn't do this page, but I see the math there. It was,
but
it
it's,
ties, I think it's just when we updated that 8 million off to the left, that's gonna be done next month. And
I
I'm
don't
wondering
know,
if she
but-
just didn't update that number there, but that's what the two numbers are, is that 8 million
well,
over here.
I guess the reason it's confusing is because it says 13 million on something.
I see
is
it,
the
you're right.
number. But to get to the 94 million on this page, you have to use the 5 million instead of the 13.
You're right.
And so I got lost in that.
No,
math.
you're right. I see exactly what she did there, and I will check that out. I apologize. I got these late last night.
Well, it looks like there should be a footnote, because it's got a little asterisk by it, but I don't see a footnote. See where it says Frost in
Yeah.
there?
Oh, there
with a
might
little
need to be.
star?
But if you look over at the investment portfolio as of this time, this is as of 2/28, but the investment portfolio is 13, the money market was 13,165,497. So I'm assuming that on the liquid funds as of 2/28, it's the 13 million number. But if you use the 13 million number, then the 94 million is not correct, because it has to be the $5 million number for the 94. Anyway,
No, thank you. like I said, I got this last night, but I will find that correction and we'll get that out.
okay,
Well, that final sheet, that's as of February,
that's why I said that's as of February.
and the front sheet's as of December.
But
Yeah,
the,
that's the point I made, but
but the subtotals, it was
Yeah,
adds up to
that's
94.5 million, and
yeah,
the 13.3 stands as an outlier, is what
Yeah.
it amounts to.
and we didn't go from 13 million, I don't think, to 5 in 2 months for money market. So anyway, if you'll just follow up
Yes,
on
ma'am.
that.
I sure will. Thank you for pointing that
Remember,
out.
we're just seeing these two, and
We can learn it together.
we're trying to, that's just trying to understand and follow the money.
And as we move forward, as we're finishing our audit, these we're going to get more detailed and more thorough, because I'll have time to work with them as well. We just haven't had that opportunity just yet. On the balance sheet, one of the things that was added in that I also noticed was different is we did include the downtown facade information on here too. Some of those hadn't been put in prior months. So that information's now given as well. That were the only notes I had on these. Were there any other questions that stood out to you?
On the budget, I was just, and it's fine, however you do it, but I'd gone through the budget to just kind of see that the 3 months we've got on this period is a third of the budget.
It's not on every row.
And it was on everything that has a fixed amount except for the marketing. And if you could check on that, because it looked to me, if you took the 728,700 and divided it by 12, you came up with 60,725 a month. And that doesn't equate to the current month to date or the year to date total, those 3 months. So I was just curious. That should be like 182, but there may be things other things that go in that. I don't know. I was just trying to understand on our budgets. I guess that the things that we budget that we haven't incurred yet, but we know we're gonna incur, we don't try to accrue those or anything like the audit or the insurance.
Historically, it doesn't look like we have been, but we can include those encumbrances.
Well, it doesn't really matter. I just think everybody needs to realize whenever you're looking at the budget and the remaining balance, some of them have big balances. And you think, wow, we're saving money, but they're really timing issues. So I think if we all understand that, it's fine. I just, usually when there's a fixed amount that you know you're gonna pay, you would go ahead and accrue that much a month, just so we know. But it's fine.
Yeah, that's a
But I
good
would
idea.
like you to check on the marketing, please.
Yes, ma'am. Sure will.
Okay. That was my issue, my questions, not issues, just questions.
Any other questions for Kayla? Entertain a motion to approve the financial report.
So moved.
Subject to those responses.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Second?
And motion is second to approve the financial report, subject to the requested information. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Thank you. Oh,
Thank
I'm
you.
sorry, I almost forgot. The ODC audit is almost done. It's drafted and it's in the hand of our auditor right now. So,
Good.
just want to let y'all know that good news.
Thank you. ODC committee and officer reports. We did have an Odessa partnership meeting. The most important thing that we discussed were the two bond issues, the OC and medical center bond issues that are coming up, and, you know, got some understanding of how those were going. We confirmed that we are going to meet quarterly, and we are, I think one of the things that I thought was important for us to do was to understand what the mission of the partnership was, which basically is to determine if there are issues that any of the members of the partnership are dealing with, and other members can assist in pushing those in the right direction, you know, such as, and if, just to kind of, I don't want to belabor this point, but the partnership was, I remember when the partnership was formed, and it was formed because we had competing bond issues that, and both failed because, and they could have been staggered and maybe had a lot better chance to pass. And so we're trying to avoid those kinds of conflicts. But in addition to that, if there are issues out there that institutions can collaborate on, I know OC and UTPB, for instance, have worked on some training, you know, some new curriculum issues, and that certainly positively affects the workforce, that type of thing. Then those are appropriately handled in those partnership meetings, and follow-up can occur. So it was a very positive meeting. I think you already touched on the advertising meeting that we talked about last time. Peggy, did compliance meet?
They didn't, but we're meeting on the 24th.
In the 24th meeting, will that include some reanalysis, I guess, of the matrix?
Of the matrix, that's the objective.
That's the objective, great. And investment review, we did not meet. That's something that we're going to try to do quarterly, or as needed. Okay, next item on the agenda, Dr. Woodley, are you ready for to present this SAS analytics project? And just for the new board members, this was approved And it was a collaboration as far as the financial support with PSP, MDC, and ODC originally, and then there was a change that occurred subsequent to that, and so it hasn't been kicked off yet. So turn it over to you, Dr. Woodley.
Thank you. While they're pulling up a bit of a demo, let me just kind of briefly go over the why for the project. You know, the economic development imperative to have the workforce in place weighs heavily on UTBB and OC and others to be able to deliver the graduates that are needed for the economy that's rolling in here. Ray Perryman's data, very specific data, shows that we're going to need 190,000 more workers for the jobs over the next 2 decades. And of that 190,000, 38,000 of them are expected to be baccalaureate degrees. And so as we're looking at trying to be very strategic and specific about, number one, understanding exactly what the gaps are, and number two, developing a model that can track progress towards filling the gap, and giving us very specific data that connect together to allow for an economic development plan that pulls together in that coalition all of the decision makers that can make it happen. So who are those? It's all the, institutionals, Texas Tech Health Science Center, Odessa College, Midland College, UTBB, and others who in this region will be responsible for developing those credentials that require those, those skills. But also workforce development professionals. Odessa Development Corporation, for example, as we go out and look at strategies to try to do that. Who are the other partners? How do we connect and understand what's happening in K-12? What students are in the pipeline who can come in and take the degrees and the credentials that are offered by the educational entities to be able to fill those gaps? And so nowhere is there a single data set and a model that pulls together all of that information in a way that we can create customizable dashboards for any entity that needs to know what their part is and whether or not their efforts are tracking. And so for probably 5 years now, we've been working on a prototype of this model with SAS Analytics, and you'll get to see a little bit of the prototype in a moment. They crafted the prototype after data that Ray Perryman did in one of his initial studies. So the data here are old, just the placeholder for the kinds of dashboards that can be delivered. Our goal is to be able to, in year one, pull in new data from Ray Perryman and other data into the model, and then to work with the stakeholders, the workforce development folks, those of us who are in the education business, whether it's K-12 or higher education, to figure out what data do you need to be able to understand what to do. Let me just give you one quick example. Permian Strategic Partnership has invested tens of millions of dollars in what they know to be gaps. They've gifted the university more than $20 million for us to be able to ramp up pre-med students who will go into investments that they made into programs at Texas Tech Health Science Center, nursing programs, behavioral health. We have 160,000 students in our programs right now because of that gift to be able to outfit the behavioral health center when it opens. They've made those investments based on imperfect information. Okay, that's what they've done. And it's not no information, it's imperfect information. So what we aim to do is to be able to pull all of this together to do much better at having strategic information in the hands of those who can make it happen, but more importantly, to be able to track our connections and our progress to be able to achieve the task over the next 10 or 20 years. We believe this regional model will be a model that will have great interest beyond the Permian Basin. We'd like to be the front of that trend. We want to be able to get this model up and running. We want to be able to have it workable for the economy that we have, and then we have the ability to help scale that up across the state. Monday, we are meeting with the head of the Texas Workforce Commission. Brian is his name. He will be at the PSP offices with Tracy Bentley and us and SAS to go over this model. We're hoping that they will see the benefit and potentially invest in it as a pilot here that then can be scaled up. We've talked with the Koch Foundation. They are doing a workforce project in West Texas. The Koch brothers have a foundation that they're working in. Workforce is kind of one of the main areas that they're working on. They've expressed interest in this project. So I believe if we can retain Odessa Development Corporation's commitment that you've already made, cobbled together with what the university can provide, what SAS will provide, and what PSP will provide, we can get year one off the ground. We can get the prototype ready. Now, it won't get us to the connection of all of the data. That would be year two. Let me talk a little bit about why it's important for the university to be a partner in the connection of the data. FERPA laws do not allow unit record data, to be shared, except between an educational entity that has a strategic reason to do it and an education entity that can be trusted to keep the information confidential. So if the university in its service in this project can pull in actual data at the K-12 system and the community colleges and Texas Tech Health Science Center so that we have a much better understanding of who's in the pipeline, what they may be interested in studying, then part of the strategy will allow us to create campaigns, for lack of a better word, like we've done in nursing, in behavioral health, in other areas, to be able to get investors like PSP and Scarborough and Abel Hanger, who've invested in these, to say, hey, look, we need more civil engineering. We need accountants. We need truck drivers. We need welders, all of the things that we may need so that we can pull together strategies with scholarships and marketing and all the things that will allow us to really strategically move that pipeline towards where it needs to be over the next 10 to 15 years. Midland Development Corporation was interested in this project a few years ago when we talked about it. I am not sure why they decided not to invest in it in this time. I will say that we're working with them on a $2 million investment in civil engineering. Part of what they are indicating is that they've made some commitments this year and next year that take a lot of their capacity towards the new hotel that they're working on in Midland. They are considering at least investing $2 million 2 years from now over that next 3 years in civil engineering. That may be part of the reason why they're not willing to invest in this at this time. And so my request is for you to consider allowing that at least the first year commitment that you've already made to go forward as we pull together enough, as we have already pulled together enough resources to be able to get year one off the ground. So I'll stop there and see if you have any questions, and then we'll give you a bit of a tour of the prototype with older data of the model that has been started already.
But you feel comfortable that without Midland Development Corporation, between the university and Permian Strategic Partnership and SAS, that you can still make up and be effective year one? You're not going to have to do less because you have less money.
Well, I do think that we may, for example, not be able to present as much briefings and material support that's listed in that $100,000 that's in the budget. Really the first year may be getting the model together and, getting that done. PSP is already committed to doing more. We don't know how much more. I mean, part of it will depend on whether or not we'll be able to get some other investors so that we don't have to skimp on any of this to get the kind of the foundation of the model ready. What I can tell you is we're actively trying to get to the full 946 so that we won't have to right size any of the project, but the crux of getting the prototype into real production can be done with the university investments, this investment from ODC and PSP. That will at least get the foundational piece together. And I do believe we'll have other investors during the year. If I have ODC in place. If I don't have ODC in place, it's a no-go. I can't get it. I can't get year one off the ground.
So Cindy, is your request for us to maintain our commitment for year one and year two, or to analyze it after year one and then do year two? What are you asking?
Well, our original request was for, and of course that is my preference, for you to commit to 2 years. and then to see if the value of the project is worth continuing. I also do believe that finding an option for continuity of the model, could and should be a broader set of investors, right? And so that's what we're actively trying to do. The Koch Foundation has very deep resources, and their main priority is around workforce. So we're following up with them. We do believe that the Texas Workforce Commission, if they see the value in this regional project that can help and be scaled up across the state, that perhaps they will pick up, the continuing. So I don't have the answer today whether or not we will come back and ask for continuing funding, because we may have other sources, and we may get to the end of the 2 years. This is not my plan, and we may say, okay, this didn't give us the value that we thought that it would give us. And then we've got, a project that gives us some value, but it doesn't get all the way to the finish line. But I feel strongly that this is what we need. This is what I need as president, to be able to get all of that together, to know where we're going. I think this is what K-12 needs. They have a system now, and it's not perfect yet. I think it's called Access with Ravi Shakamori, that gets in there, and they have some way to understand the students who are in our K-12 pipeline, what they're interested in studying. That data, and we've had preliminary conversations with them, that data could potentially be pulled into this data set that the university could maintain the confidentiality, and also create, much more, a much deeper understanding of what's in the pipeline.
Well, how many years of data do you need to make the thing work?
Well, we'll have to add new data every single year. And so the data from, from Ray Perryman, he's been producing this data for 4 years. PSP has purchased that data. Okay, so they're gifting the data. That's what you'll see here. They're gifting the data. And it's not just, Ray Perryman's economic data. PSP themselves have gone out and paid for a much detailed analysis among the oil and gas companies of what they think they're going to need in the energy industry. They're allowing that data to go into the database as well. We also have other national data sources that we can pull in, to help, round out, the pieces that we don't have. In year 2 and afterwards, we'll have to work with our educational partners, both at the K-12 side and the higher ed side, to pull those data in so that they also can understand their part in it and the progress and how it fits into the larger picture. But, that's not committed yet. It'll take work, to be able to do that, and I think there's great value in that. But first of all, we have to get the model done. In year 1, we certainly would pull together a technical and a policy advisory board among all of those stakeholders, so that they can say, hey, this is what's most helpful to me. This is what I need to see. What kind of data is it important for a workforce team to understand, and an economic development team like ODC to understand, compared to what Keely Boyer needs to know on the K-12 side, right? How do we make those connections? And then I do think the the connections between and among the educational entities and the providers who hire those graduates, that's the data. I think the other value of the model for an entity like Odessa Development Corporation, as they go out to recruit new companies, if you really have a strong strategy and data around what your workforce pipeline is, right? And you can see what's needed, and you can see the strategy in the stakeholders to being responsive to what you need. I mean, what shows more responsiveness than, hey, let's figure out what we need, and let's ask people what they need, and let's specifically put the data in there, and let's track our progress towards making that a reality. Then I think it's a competitive edge for Odessa Development Corporation to be able to go out and recruit companies to Odessa.
I think when we considered this, we were anticipating our workforce needs growing exponentially, and there's no way. We don't believe, or didn't believe at the time, I don't believe at the time, this time, we can't grow our own in the numbers that we need. But we could grow our own to make a material difference, and that's what we were trying to do. The thing that I'm wrestling with, I guess in my mind, and maybe it's like, I guess I want to control the sandbox
Yeah.
a little bit. You know, these are our toys and whatnot, and with MDC pulling out their support, I guess I just want to say, well, they can't use any of the information.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if that's the right thing to do or not, but that's, you know, we're spending the money,
Yeah.
and we ought to be able to develop the information, and it ought to benefit our community. It was intended to benefit Odessa and Midland, the entire Permian Basin. That's
Sure.
really what it was intended for.
Sure.
So,
Well,
how
I
do
think,
you respond to that?
yeah,
'Cause
well, listen, I think in year one, this is, you know, the foundational model, and if you follow through with your commitment, you're funding almost half of it. Then we work with ODC. We don't have to work with MDC. Eventually, you know, and the model is not just Odessa, as you know. The model will have to include the entire Permian Basin to be effective.
Yeah.
So we will absolutely do that. But I think we can certainly make the commitment here that in year one, it's fair to keep it close here because of the investment that you've made, and then we can figure out what's next, you know, after year one.
Yeah, and I don't want to be misconstrued
Yeah.
on this either, because I wouldn't want to shut off the collaboration that we've developed over time. Particularly, you know, we've both of MDC and ODC have bought down
Yeah.
TxDOT projects, for instance, and accelerated those, and they've done a good job, you know, supporting that, and we've equally done a good job supporting it, and it's worked. It's benefited the you know, with highway infrastructure and whatnot. So I guess I'm just I'm disappointed that this is not going to be a partnership like we have had in the past, and I guess I'm a little selfish, and I hope my heart's in the right place there. But
Well, I could even see, once this is up and going, and, because I think this could be a tremendous tool for ODC.
For
You
sure.
know, companies are always telling us how many people they need.
Right.
What does our workforce look like? Can you supply?
Yeah.
So I think it's a great tool. I also think that once it's up and going, it's valuable information. And if the information is out there and somebody wants to purchase that information,
Sure.
then
Well, we have the ability and
you know, I mean,
Sure. And we have the ability in these dashboards to determine, you know, the dashboards at this time really aren't intended to be outward facing. They're an internal tool. You know, someone asked me, I can't even remember what meeting I was in, they said, well, you know, how will the companies be able to use the data? The companies get the workers. So the companies aren't using the data, right? It's the people who deliver on the graduates and and those, they get the workers. That's what they get out of it. And so the real value in the tool is in the strategic planning, the implementation of the plan, and the tracking the progress and course correction along the way. And of course, as we know, I mean, when this original data set was put into this tool, this was before COVID. I mean, Ray Perryman didn't have a COVID scenario that had a negative 37, you know, price of oil, right? And so the value of creating the model and having it continue is that you feed regularly in the new data. It changes, okay? And our priorities change. You know, what we think is a shortage in workforce now, we're not even going to be able to imagine what would be the hottest thing that we may need, maybe technology-wise 8 years from now. But the goal is to be able to be in a position where you can have evidence-based, thoughtful work, knowing that the work takes a while to get going. You know, I mean, things move pretty slow in academia. And so as president, I'm constantly working to have this edge. How do I know you know, to quote Wayne Gretzky, how do I skate to where the puck is going to be? Right? How do I get to where it's going to be? Well, I have to have some way to understand where it's going to be.
Right.
And these models aren't going to give you a perfect forecast. They can only, you know, do what it is that the history tells you and sort of the data at the time. But as these models get more sophisticated, we can create not the scenario that the history tells us we're going to. What do we want it to be? And how do we gear up the workforce and the economic development of bringing the companies in, you know, aerospace, advanced manufacturing, for example. I mean, no model's going to tell you maybe that you need that. Well, if we want that and we want to go after that, then what has to be in place to achieve it? Well, you got to be able to show that you're going to have the workforce and many other factors going in there. So I believe in the project. I think it's something that would benefit not only ODC, but the entire Permian Basin, and the university would love to be a part of it.
Sandy, what if, I know you gather data from lots of different places. Would the fact, the request that so many, as people ask for grants here, and they tell us what they want, particularly in AI, that's going to be a really, really big thing
Sure.
in the future.
Yeah.
But then would we have the opportunity to get that information so it feeds into, these are things that are needed?
Yeah, and that is really kind of the core competency of SAS Analytics. They're big data analytics powerhouse. They have the ability to connect together data from all kind of different sources into a single database, and I'm oversimplifying this, and then create the models that connect all of that to get us what we need. If we do this correctly, the prototype that we develop in year one will only grow based on what our stakeholders say that they need.
That we need.
What do you need? What is the interest? What do we want to do? Okay, well, let's figure out how we get whatever data we need to be able to understand what that next step is. Now, you know, the university, you know, we only have so many resources in-house right now to be able to do the sophisticated analysis that comes from this. In year one, SAS and their team will have to do it for us, right? The goal long-term is to be able to develop that competency in-house so that not only do we run the model and we have the data and we make the connections and we serve these advisory boards and all the stakeholders who want the specific dashboard that leads to what they want, but that we have the ability to be nimble enough. We don't have it now. This will give us the ability to get going, and then we can see whether or not we have enough resources to be able to create that core competency in-house to serve the economic development in that way.
Dr. Woodley, you said something, kind of similar questions. This will, though, if someone were asking for it, they could still get information from the model from a public information request, though, right? Since the university owns it?
Not really. Well, no, I don't know about that. I don't think that they can get proprietary data that comes into the model. And then what would they do with it? If they don't have the model itself, you know, like Ray Perryman may put together a data report, but his data is, you know, is not just data. It's an entire model that pulls together all of those factors to do it. But I don't really know the answer to your question. Whether or not it's discoverable through a public information request, I don't know.
I mean,
maybe
that's
yeah.
That's what we do as lawyers, thinking of that. But
well, of course.
to David's point, though, you know, if ODC is putting in the money, then just someone else could have free access to it. Just kind of circumventing that a different way.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I mean, the dashboards and the data that we put together are meant to, you know, to serve the, you know, the investors in year one for sure.
And that may be a myopic way to look at it too. So I guess let me summarize. You know, I think Sandy has come to us today basically saying, I made a request to you under these circumstances, and the circumstances have changed, in particular the funding. Mm-hmm. The program, the end result, and what, you know, what the mission is has not changed. Our resolution mentions nothing about MDC's support or anybody else's support. It's only talking about our support. And so I would guess we don't have to take any action at all, and they'll go on, UTPB is gonna go on with this project. But I guess what I would say, we could take action. We could say, no, under the circumstances, we don't think that's likely to work. We think you're gonna be underfunded, or for whatever reason, we could vote to do that. But we could take no action. But if we took no action, I think what we ought to do is we ought to make it clear that, I mean, we really want to understand after the first year. And I
Sure.
think you were prepared to do that
Of course,
anyway,
yes.
with regard to the effectiveness. You know, what are we getting, you know, what's our bang for our buck and whatnot. So, you know, we got two choices. We pull the plug on it, or we just continue on and believe in the project, and we know we're gonna take a real hard look at it after year one.
I don't think we pulled the plug, but I just have because the resolution discusses both years. Is the ask today just for 1 year, or is it still for both?
I asked that. You're
Well,
asking for
well, let
both
me just
years,
say,
right?
I mean, obviously, I'd like to have 2 years to work through the project. But if it is the sense of this board that it would be better, given the circumstances, to approve and change it and approve 1 year and let us revisit it after 1 year, of course, we would be grateful for that as well. So really, either of those scenarios would work for me.
Well, I'd like to ask this, the data you're talking about, and, where are you gonna, when everybody talks about data, this, that, are you gonna go to all the high schools and interview in the region that UTPB serves, and you're gonna interview let's just say hypothetically, a ninth grade student, where do you wanna be in 4 years? What do you wanna do? Because we have this, and I'm not being cynical, and please don't take it this way.
Sure.
I know you work very hard to do what you do, but, you know, we have, Odessa College has concurrent enrollment. We're gonna graduate probably, 500 people with an associate's degree right out of high school this next week or two.
Yeah,
Where are they going?
sure.
You know, the same thing. I think it's great for people to learn, and I'll go way back. I'm not that old, but I'll go way back to when, if a guy didn't want to really go to school, he didn't really want to concern in education. You know,
Yeah.
you could go over to Hector Junior High, and you could learn auto mechanics. You could learn body shop. You could learn welding. You could do all that. And if we're talking about workforce, they do change. But you know, I've never seen this. I'm gonna make a TV show. Maybe I saw what's the one with Tommy Lee Jones?
Landman?
Landman.
Yeah, Landman. Well,
Well, you gotta
there's a statement in there.
watch
I've
out for
heard
those
of.
cartels.
I've never seen it, but I've heard this statement already. You know, the oil field's the only place where a guy with an 8th grade education can go make a 6-figure salary, and that is absolutely true.
It is.
You know, with no sense at all. I would like to see the program stay, but I'd really like to see what we're doing with it,
Yeah.
rather than just producing. And don't take this wrong again, what I call a blow-off degree. Whether you got a college degree, but you really don't do anything with it, doesn't mean anything. And,
Yeah.
and maybe, I'll use a case example. I have a niece that I don't have very many nieces, so I have a niece that went to school and she became a psychologist.
Yeah.
And she doesn't do that. She works for a rental car company.
Sure.
So what I would like to see come out of this would be, and the same thing, you know, the money talks.
Yeah.
But am I making sense to you?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and let me just make a few points. You know, we certainly won't have perfect information about the intent of the students in K-12, but an initiative that has already been invested in called, I think it's Access, they have a way to survey already the students, and then they understand kind of at some level what they're interested in and which career path they're tracking on. Right. That data could be brought into this to give better clarity about what we do know, about that. So it's not perfect, but it does provide, some look into that. The other data set that we're looking at bringing in year 2 is career outcomes. Right. So SeekUT is an amazing database that the University of Texas system does for any student who graduates from any of the UT institutions, and it tracks the student what they went to work doing, whether it was in their field or not, what their salary was. They track it at the beginning, they track it at 6 months, they track it at 1 year. So connecting the career outcomes is important as well, to your point. Yeah. All of that could eventually be brought in, to the potentially could be brought in, and some of that information came in through workforce.
Yeah, well, the other thing is, most statistics will show that, say the ninth grade class for this year, the freshman class, has 1,200, 1,300 students. By the time they graduate,
Yeah.
it may only graduate 900.
100%.
So where do those other 300 kids go?
Yeah.
To wherever. So that's another issue I'd like to see, your program help. And I'll say this last thing because it's a really good story. And Zig Ziglar is a motivational speaker.
I remember Zig Ziglar.
Well,
Power of positive thinking.
He said this story, and most people do. A guy grows up, and you could use Odessa, Texas, for an example. A guy grows up in a small town. He graduates high school, and he says, "What do you do?" "Oh, I don't know. My dad works at the mill." So out here, we'll say, "My dad works on the pulling unit." Well, you want to go do that? "Oh, yeah, I guess so." So he takes off, and all his potential and everything he has is ruined because he never really thought about what he wanted to do. Nobody ever asked him what he wanted to do. Nobody gave him an idea. They never said, "Well, you want to open an insurance company? Would you like to be an attorney? Would you like to be an accountant? Would you like to be a banker?" No, you just go work on there. And so that's what I would like to see out of this.
Right.
This also is identify. Well, you tell. What do we need now? We need waiters. We need janitors. We need
all of it.
Anything we need. But
Sure.
You don't need a college degree, obviously, to do that. But it's important for this, for us to try to, if we're going to do this, to try to focus on a good result. And that's why I think, we'll all have a different opinion, but I think the first year would be to see, and if it's working, let's see how it works, and see what the next year, go ahead and fund it, and see what the next year looks like as far as how the success rate's going.
Sure.
If it doesn't work, it's not working.
Right.
But that's not a lot of money in this day and time. I'm sorry, it's not. But,
Yeah.
Okay, this school year's pretty much done.
Yeah.
So if we fund this, I'm just trying to get time schedule in my head. If we fund this, you're gonna do it for this next year, so you're looking at 2025, the end of May of 25, you'll have some data.
Yeah, we certainly will have some data. It will take probably 6, 7, 8 months to get all the new data in. And again, year one doesn't connect the K-12 data or the other data. So, there's only, foundational functionality that we will have in year one. But by this time next year, way before this time next year, we'll have something to show. We'll have something to show.
In a year, will you have anything
We sure
to
will.
tell us anything that we've done anything?
Yes, of course.
That's my question.
Well, I mean,
is 1 year going to give you any time to get any of the stuff together to
Sure.
show what you're doing?
Well, I mean, the truth of the matter is we've been cobbling together a prototype for 5 years. So we're not starting from zero.
Okay.
We've been working on it. SAS Analytics believes in this project, and so they've comped a lot of their work to be able to kind of get the prototype up and going. And then COVID hit, and then we, it kind of went on the back burner. So we've geared it back up, in the last year to try to get investors and to get back to it. But we're not starting from zero. We have a foundation that we can build on to get year one pretty good, and it won't get us all the way to what we want here, but it'll be the foundation that will allow us to say, okay, we can see the trends here. We've got the data connected. Let me show you what the dashboards look like. And we've got some of those developed already. It's got old data in there. We will have time this year to pull together the stakeholders and workforce and others to say, okay, this is what I really need to see in my dashboard, right? And so I think absolutely at the end of the year one, there will be enough information and solid progress that this body can make a determination, and me as well, whether or not it's worth our time and energy in the investments that we're seeking to try to continue it.
I think that our workforce needs are forecasted to be so great that if we don't spend something and I don't know, I'm going to use the term regular basis, if we don't have some kind of ongoing funding of some effort to try to improve and strategically improve that our workforce, then I think we're making a mistake. And I don't know what that number is. I don't know what the magic funding level is, but I think if we don't do that, then we're not doing what we can to fulfill our mission.
Is there anything else like this around the state that you're
No,
aware of?
I mean, there are bits and pieces of projects, but we haven't found anything that pulls together all of it like this. And that's why I think it has the opportunity to really, put this project on the map, so to speak, and for this project to be scalable, certainly across Texas and maybe even beyond that. I'm hoping that the conversations with the Texas Workforce Commissioner, on Monday provides that. I'm hoping that the Koch Foundation, because they're in, I don't know, just a little bit about their project, but they're here in West Texas really focusing on workforce, and that's what they want to, and they were looking at some models that would give them something like this. So they were like, wow, this could really be helpful. So I think if we can, make that vegetable soup and have enough entities who will come in and invest into the soup that we get by, the end of the year, we're going to find something, I think, that it could be very special for not just us, but way beyond. And look, Odessa deserves to be, head of the train on lots of things, and I think this could be one of those things.
I think everyone here is speaking highly of that we need this and everything. I think the ODC is already approved and was behind it, and the fact that Midland backed out, I don't think should be an issue as far as, I think you've researched and told us that you think you can get that replaced. And so I think, I'd make a motion, we continue on with the program just like we have it right now.
I'd second that motion.
I don't even know if we needed to do that.
We don't, but
Okay.
but it probably would be nice to have that in our minutes.
Okay.
We got presented.
Yeah, I wasn't going to proceed without it, I can tell you that. Even though legally I could have done it, I wasn't going to do it.
Situation changed, and we're still committed if we are.
And I would applaud you.
Thank you.
Because you could just draw the
Yeah.
money.
Yeah.
And I applaud the fact that you
Right.
have told us that this is different.
Yeah.
But here's how you're going to make up for that. And I think that, not
That
that
says
you
it all
need
right
any
there.
more credibility, but
thank
that
you.
is very credible, and I appreciate it.
Well, what I can also say is that we will provide regular updates and visuals of these models as often as you'd like. So if you like, we can set up a quarterly opportunity to come and show you our progress, and also give you an update on potential partners and funding
think
partners as they
that'd be
come
Yeah.
along the way.
Yeah, that's all we have.
So we'll just plan to do a quarterly report at your request.
You don't need to worry about us. You need to do the work.
I will do it.
But we can be very good advocates for it and understand what's going
Yeah.
on, I think.
Great.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? And the motion is to continue to support the resolution that we had already approved. If no further discussion, all in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Very
Thank you.
grateful. Thank you.
very much.
All right, next item, number 9. Next meeting is scheduled for Thursday, May the 8th. That conflicts for me with the American Cancer Society fundraising golf tournament that I played in for several years.
Can we get
And
you
I
a
was
morning
won-
tea time?
I was,
We don't start till 3.
I was wondering if the 7th or the 6th, everyone would be, that'd be, so instead of meeting on a Thursday, could we meet on a Wednesday or a Tuesday? Does
Either
that,
one. I'm good.
I'm good either way.
Yeah, either way, I'm fine.
all right, so I think what we'll do is, I'll ask Norma to send out,
Really?
something, or
Really?
just what?
For a golf tournament?
Yes.
Okay.
It's important.
Oh, wait till June when the quarter century's going on.
Yeah, because you're going to have that
Well,
conflict in June too, aren't you?
I guess, do you have a preference of the 7th or the 6th? Maybe we can just go ahead and set it,
Wednesday would be better for me.
all right?
Yeah, Wednesday.
Wednesday.
All right,
That's
so
fine.
Wednesday'd be the 7th at 3 o'clock.
If this room is available, isn't that what they always have to check?
I think it'll probably be
Now watch me, I won't be
Yeah.
able to, someone come
that
up.
time.
As far as I know, it's good.
All right, unless a conflict arises, then our next meeting will be Wednesday, May the 7th at 3 p.m. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move, we adjourn.
Second.
A motion is second to adjourn. All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you all for your time.